The blizzard had swallowed the night. Liam heard it first, the bang against the doorframe. His hand froze on the coffee cup. Bang again. Through the frosted glass, a silhouette. A woman, her shoulders hunched, trembling in the snow. He could see her breath coming in short, desperate gasps. She clutched a backpack tight against her chest. Her face was pale, streaked with tears and ice. One choice only. Let her in, or let her die outside. Liam's hand moved toward the deadbolt, then stopped. Every instinct screamed at him to keep the door locked. He had learned that lesson the hard way 5 years ago, on a night just like this one. He lived alone in a house that looked like it was held together by habit rather than nails. The wood frame had grayed with time. The gutters sagged. The paint peeled in long strips from the porch. Inside, the floorboards creaked under weight, and the heating system worked only when it felt generous. But it was his. He had paid it off year by year, working construction jobs when he could find them, doing odd repairs for neighbors, cutting wood in autumn to sell for winter heat. Everything he had went to the child sleeping upstairs and the roof that kept the rain off his small family. The woman outside banged again, weaker this time. Liam had been 28 when Sarah found him at a bar. She had seemed kind, lost. She had said she needed a place to stay for one night because her car had broken down miles from town and her phone had died. The story was simple, believable. It was February then, too, just as cold. He had let her in, gave her coffee, gave her the guest room. The next morning, she was gone, along with his laptop, his emergency cash, and his father's watch, the only thing of real value he owned. He never reported it. What was the point? She had left no trace. He had learned something that day about the cost of mercy. The lesson had stuck hard. The knock came again, almost apologetic now. Liam opened the door. The woman fell forward. He caught her instinctively, his arms around her shoulders before his mind had caught up with his body. She was ice cold, soaked through. Her lips had taken on a bluish tint. Her eyes were open but unfocused, rolling back slightly as consciousness slipped away. He hauled her inside and kicked the door shut behind them. His kitchen was small. He laid her on the tile floor and stripped off her sodden coat and boots. The backpack she had been clutching stayed locked under her arm even as she lost consciousness. He didn't try to pry it loose. He grabbed every blanket in the house, there weren't many, and wrapped her. He turned up the thermostat despite knowing what it would cost him in his next heating bill. He found a cushion and placed it under her head. Then he carried the backpack upstairs to the guest room and set it carefully on the dresser. For a long time, he just watched her breathe. The house had been quiet since his son went down for the night. The kind of quiet that made him aware of how much space 5 rooms could hold when you lived in it, alone with a child. The woman's breathing changed the shape of that silence, made it less empty and more dangerous. He thought about Sarah. He thought about trust. He checked the woman's wrist for a pulse. It was there, steady and strong despite her body trembling from the cold. Her hair was dark, matted against her neck. Her clothes, even soaked, suggested money. The fabric of her jeans was expensive, her sweater a wool blend. But her face was all vulnerability, all fear. Whatever had brought her to his door in the middle of a blizzard had stripped away any pretense. By 2 in the morning, she had regained partial consciousness. She drank water. She didn't speak. She seemed to be aware enough to know she was safe, but not coherent enough to explain where she had come from. Liam sat in the chair across from the couch where he had moved her, watching the fire in the old stove, listening to the wind beat against the windows. He had broken his own rule. He had let a stranger in, and already he could feel it. The small cracks forming in the walls he had built around his caution. Morning came gray and relentless. The snow still fell. The woman woke around 9 o'clock. Liam heard the shift in her breathing and looked up from the coffee he had been nursing for an hour. Their eyes met for the first time when she was fully conscious. She was beautiful in a way that seemed accidental. No makeup, hair still damp, features arranged in confusion as she tried to place where she was. Then memory seemed to return. Something flickered across her face. Not quite relief, not quite fear. "Where am I?" Her voice was hoarse from cold. "My house. You came to the door last night. I brought you inside." He stood up slowly, giving her space. "You're safe." She looked at him for a long moment, trying to read something in his face. He understood the calculation happening behind her eyes. He had seen it before, the question every frightened person asked silently. "Do I trust this man?" "I'm Liam," he said. She sat up slowly, the blanket slipping. She wore a thin long-sleeve shirt beneath, expensive, ruined now probably from the snow. "I'm Elena," she said finally. "Thank you for letting me in." The formality of it struck him, the way she said it like a transaction between strangers who would never see each other again. She glanced around the small living room, at the worn furniture and the dying fire, and something in her expression softened slightly. Gratitude, maybe, or exhaustion. "You need food," Liam said. It was the only safe thing he could offer. "And dry clothes. I have some that might fit." She nodded but didn't move. Liam recognized the look. She was still deciding whether to stay or to leave immediately. Whether the risk of remaining in a stranger's house was better or worse than whatever she had been running from. He gave her the space to make that choice without watching. He was at the stove 20 minutes later, scrambling eggs and toasting bread, when Elena came down the stairs. She wore his sweatpants and a fleece jacket that hung loose on her frame. Her dark hair was brushed and damp. Without the mask of shock and cold, he could see how exhausted she was. Not just tired, the kind of tiredness that came from running and worrying and carrying something too heavy for too long. "The bathroom upstairs is the third door," he said, without turning from the eggs. "If you want a shower later, I can heat more water." "Why are you being kind to me?" The question was direct. He turned to look at her. She stood in the doorway between the kitchen and living room, small in his oversized clothes, watching him with the intensity of someone who couldn't understand his motives. "Because you needed help," Liam said. "That's reason enough." Something about that answer seemed to surprise her. She sat at the small kitchen table without responding. He set a plate in front of her. She ate slowly, carefully, like she was afraid the food might disappear or that she might not deserve it. After a few bites, she spoke. "There are people looking for me. Or there will be. Soon." She didn't look up from her plate. "Whoever gave you shelter, it's not safe. Not for long. The blizzard might buy time, but then we'll deal with that when the blizzard ends," Liam said. She looked up at him then. He saw the calculation in her eyes shift. The fear was still there, but something else had entered it. A small, fragile thing that might have been hope. "I can't tell you much. Not yet. Not until I understand it better myself." She set down her fork. "But I'm not a danger to you. Not in the way you're probably thinking." He believed her. The realization unsettled him because it meant his armor was thinner than he thought. One night of crisis, and he was already allowing someone past his defenses. It was the same mistake he had made with Sarah, just dressed in different circumstances. But this was different. Or he was hoping it was. Outside, the snow continued to fall. Inside, Liam had made a choice that would crack open everything that came after. He had opened the door. Now he was learning how to live with that decision. Elena finished her eggs and stared out at the winter landscape. The wind pushing snow against the windows in waves. Her hands wrapped around the coffee cup he had given her, like she was trying to absorb its warmth. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for not asking more questions. I'm sure you'll tell me when you're ready." She smiled then, sad and tired, but genuine. I hope you don't regret this, she said. Liam didn't answer. He was already wondering if he would. The blizzard didn't break for 3 days. By the second morning, Elena had moved from the couch to the guest room upstairs. Liam had left her there with clean sheets and a window that faced the white expanse of the woods beyond. He heard her moving around in the early hours, not restless, just awake, the kind of wakefulness that came from fear. His son was 6 years old. His name was Thomas. He had his mother's dark eyes and her habit of noticing small things. On the second day, Thomas found Elena in the kitchen and asked if she wanted to help him build a fort from the couch cushions. Liam watched from the doorway. Elena had hesitated for only a moment before she smiled and said yes. By evening, the living room had been transformed into something that resembled a castle, and Thomas was laughing in a way that Liam hadn't heard in months. Elena sat inside the fort, teacup balanced on her lap, listening to Thomas explain the intricate rules of whatever game he had invented. Her face had changed. Some of the fear had receded, replaced by something softer. Liam had stood in the kitchen, watching this happen, and felt something shift inside him. That night, after Thomas was asleep, Elena came downstairs. Liam was sitting by the fire with a beer he'd been nursing since sunset. "He's a good kid," Elena said, settling into the chair across from him. "He is." Liam didn't ask her to elaborate on herself. He had learned patience waiting for his son to tell him things. He applied the same patience now. Elena stared at the flames. "I haven't been around children in years. I forgot what that was like." What was like? "Simplicity," she said. "The way he just accepts things. No agenda. No calculation." Liam sipped his beer. "That changes eventually." "I know." Elena wrapped her arms around herself. "I think that's why I needed to get away. I've spent so long around people who only care about what you can give them or what you can do for them. Your son asked me to help him build a fort, not for any reason. Just because he wanted company." She was offering him something, a glimpse into why she was here, running from something, without actually saying what. Liam understood the boundaries she was drawing. He respected them because he recognized his own caution reflected in hers. "The people looking for you," he said carefully. "Are they going to show up here?" "Maybe. Eventually." Elena's hands tightened. "I don't know yet. Everything happened so fast. One moment I was doing my job, and the next moment everything was falling apart." "Your job?" Elena looked at him then. There was a calculation in her expression. How much to reveal? How much to hold back? "I work for a corporation. Senior position. A lot of pressure. People who don't necessarily have the best intentions." She turned back to the flames. "One of them decided to use me as a stepping stone. I ran before I could be destroyed." It was close to the truth, Liam sensed, but not the whole truth. Still, it was enough. He could understand that much. The fear in her voice was real. The exhaustion was genuine. Whether she had left out pieces or not, the core of what she was telling him rang true. "You're safe here?" he said. Elena nodded. She didn't thank him again. She seemed to understand that some kindnesses didn't need acknowledgement. They just needed to be believed in. The blizzard continued through the third day. The snow piled higher against the windows. Liam had to dig out the front door just to keep the entrance clear. Inside, Elena fell into a rhythm with the household. She cooked with Thomas, teaching him to make pasta sauce from scratch. She helped with laundry. She read to him before bed. And in the evenings, when Thomas was asleep, she talked. She told Liam about the weight of expectations, about sitting in boardroom meetings where every word was a calculation, every gesture a power move. About colleagues who smiled to your face and worked against you in private. About discovering that the person you thought had your back had actually been sharpening a knife the entire time. "I trusted him," she said on the third night, sitting on the porch while Liam split wood for the stove. The snow had lightened to occasional flakes. That was the mistake. I thought because we had worked together for years, because I had helped him rise up the ladder, that he would show some loyalty, some basic human decency. I was naive. Liam set down the axe. You weren't naive. You were just being human. Elena wrapped a blanket tighter around her shoulders. In the world I come from, being human is a liability. Liam felt something shift in his chest. He recognized the pain in her voice, because it matched something in his own past. Different circumstances, same wound. He thought about Sarah, but the memory was losing some of its sharp edges. Elena's presence had begun to soften even his oldest scars. Why didn't you go to the police? He asked. Because I can't prove anything. Not yet. And even if I could, the scandal would destroy the company. It would destroy me professionally. My accuser is very good at making false allegations sound plausible. Elena looked at him. I needed to disappear, to think, to figure out how to fight back without burning everything down. Liam understood that too. The quiet desperation of someone trying to solve an impossible problem alone. It was on the fourth morning when the knock came. The blizzard had finally stopped sometime during the night. The world outside was transformed into something clean and white. Liam was making coffee when he heard it. 3 quick raps against the front door. Not urgent, professional. He opened the door to find a man in a dark coat, clean-shaven, with the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. Morning, the man said. I'm looking for a woman. Missing person report. She drove off the road somewhere in this area during the storm. Has she come through here? Liam's instinct was immediate. The man's smile was too rehearsed. His eyes were too calculated. This wasn't a police officer, and it wasn't a concerned relative. This was someone with an agenda. What's her name? Liam asked, already knowing the answer. Elena Hartley, Caucasian female, late 30s, dark hair. She's mixed up in some corporate trouble. Very complicated situation. Could be dangerous. The man's smile widened. Wouldn't want her putting you or anyone else here at risk. From upstairs, Liam heard Thomas's footsteps in the hallway. He heard Elena's voice, soft, telling his son to get dressed. I haven't seen anyone like that, Liam said. He was surprised by how steady his voice was, how natural the lie sounded. We've been snowed in. No one's come by. The man studied his face for a long moment. Liam kept his expression blank. The face of a poor man, alone in a house with his child, someone who had no connection to corporate worlds or scandals. Well, if she does show up, there's a reward, the man said, handing him a business card. Marcus Devereaux. Call me anytime. Liam took the card without looking at it. He wanted the man gone. He wanted his house clean of this presence. After Marcus left, Liam stood at the door for a long moment before closing it. Upstairs, everything had gone silent. He climbed the stairs and found Elena in the hallway, pale, her hand gripping Thomas's shoulder. His son looked confused and a little frightened. Who was that man? Thomas asked. Someone selling something, Liam said. Nothing important. Come on, breakfast is ready. He didn't look directly at Elena as they went downstairs. He needed time to process what he had just done. He had lied for her. He had put his son at risk by lying for her. All his careful rules, all his caution after Sarah, had crumbled in the span of a conversation with a stranger. The doubt came back that afternoon. Not strong enough to make him regret what he had done, but strong enough to make him aware of his vulnerability. Elena was in the kitchen with Thomas, making lunch. Liam went upstairs to the guest room where her backpack was stored. He shouldn't have looked. He knew that even as he was doing it. But he needed to know. He needed to understand what he was protecting. Inside the backpack, He found clothes, a wallet, and a small leather journal. He opened the wallet first. Credit cards with her name, a driver's license with her photo, $200 in cash. Nothing that explained the man's visit or the fear in her eyes. Then he found it. A watch. Expensive. The kind of expensive that cost more than Liam made in a year. Rolex. Gold. Real gold. Beneath it were work documents, contracts, correspondence. Her name appeared on them repeatedly. Elena Hartley. There was a signature. Her signature. He recognized it from seeing her write her name the day before. He looked for a job title, some official designation. There was none. The documents were vague about her position, heavy on financial language and corporate jargon that he didn't fully understand. But the tone of them suggested authority, decision-making power, someone important. Liam closed the backpack and went downstairs. Elena was preparing sandwiches when he appeared in the kitchen doorway. Thomas was coloring at the table, oblivious. Liam dropped the documents in front of Elena. "What is this?" he asked. Elena's face went white. She glanced at Thomas, then back at Liam. "Can we talk upstairs?" "Now." She set down the knife slowly. "Thomas, keep coloring, okay? I'll be right back." They went into the living room. Liam kept his voice low, but it came out harder than he intended. "What do these mean? What are you not telling me?" Elena sat down on the couch like her legs had given out. "I told you I worked for the corporation. I have a senior position. These are just work documents. Your signature is on contracts. You're making decisions that affect millions of dollars." Liam's hands were shaking. "You didn't mention that. You said you were burned out. You said you were running from someone. But these documents suggest you have serious power. So what is it, Elena? Are you running because you did something wrong? Are you hiding from the law?" "No. No, I'm not hiding from the law." Elena's voice broke. Tears started sliding down her face. "I was trying to protect you. I was trying to protect your son. Protect us from what? From what knowing too much would cost you." Elena looked at him with desperation in her eyes. "You opened your door to me. You took me in. I didn't want you to feel obligated to me because of who I am or what I have. I just wanted to be a person. Someone your son could spend time with. Someone who could feel normal for a few days." Liam felt his anger shift. It didn't disappear, but it transformed into something more complicated. "I'm not a thief," Elena continued. "I'm not running from the law, but I am running from someone. Someone I trusted. Someone who decided that destroying me was worth more than our years of working together. Marcus Devereaux. He's a subordinate who was supposed to report to me. He found a way to make it look like I was the problem. And now I'm stuck between admitting everything and losing my credibility, or staying quiet and letting him take what I built." Liam sat down. The fight had gone out of him. What remained was something more fragile. Understanding. "You should have told me," he said quietly. "I know. I have a son. I can't afford to be involved in something dangerous. I know that too." Elena wrapped her arms around herself. "That's why I tried not to drag you in. And then that man showed up. And you lied for me anyway. You chose me over the easy path. So now you're involved whether I wanted that or not." Liam thought about Sarah and the lesson she had taught him. He thought about Elena with Thomas, building forts and teaching him to make pasta. He thought about the expensive watch and the corporate documents and the desperation in a woman running from someone she had trusted. "I'm sorry," he said finally, "for how I reacted, for searching your things." Elena didn't say it was okay. She just cried, and Liam sat with her while she did, neither of them speaking. When Thomas called from the kitchen, asking if the sandwiches were ready, Elena wiped her face, and they returned to their ordinary afternoon. Thomas didn't ask questions. He just ate his lunch and went back to coloring. That night, after Thomas was asleep, they sat together again by the fire. Elena seemed smaller somehow, diminished by confession. "He's going to come back," Elena said. "Marcus, now that he knows I'm here." "Then we'll deal with it," Liam said. "When he does." Elena looked at him like she couldn't quite believe he meant it. But he did. Somewhere between the knock on his door and this moment, he had made a choice. Not the rational choice, not the safe choice, but the human one. Outside, the world was quiet and white. Inside, two broken people had found something fragile and real. It wouldn't last. Liam could feel the storm approaching on the horizon, even though the blizzard had stopped. But for tonight, they had this. Marcus came back on the morning the roads were finally cleared. Liam knew it was him before he opened the door. He recognized the sound of the engine, expensive, precise, out of place in this neighborhood of worn trucks and old sedans. Through the window, he watched Marcus step out of a black sedan, brushing snow from his coat as if it had personally offended him. This time, Marcus didn't bother with the missing person story. He walked straight to the door and knocked with the kind of authority that came from knowing he held leverage. Elena was upstairs. She had been awake since before dawn, sitting at the window of the guest room, watching the road. Liam had heard her pacing the floor. He opened the door before Marcus could knock again. "Ms. Hartley's here, isn't she?" Marcus said, his smile sharp as a blade. The neighbors confirmed they saw a woman matching her description. Black hair, European features. They remember her quite clearly. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Of course you don't." Marcus stepped closer, invading the space of the doorway. "But Elena does. And if she doesn't want me to involve the authorities in her current location, she's going to have a conversation with me. Today, at the office." Liam heard footsteps above him. Elena was coming down. She appeared in the hallway behind him, already dressed, her face composed, in a way that erased all the peace the last few days had built. She looked like someone putting on armor. "It's okay," Elena said to Liam. Then, to Marcus, "I'll come. But I'm not doing anything without representation and a full investigation into the allegations against me." Marcus's smile widened. "Of course not. We'll do everything by the book. Though the book might have already closed on your career depending on what I decide to say to the board." Elena moved toward the door. Liam stepped in front of her. "She's not going anywhere alone," he said. Marcus laughed, actually laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You're the boyfriend? How delightful. How utterly, pathetically delightful. You think you're protecting her? You're just making yourself an accessory. Whatever happens now, you're part of it." Liam felt something crack inside him. The old fear came rushing back. The fear of being pulled into something he couldn't control, of making a mistake that would cost him everything. He looked at Elena, and he saw the same fear reflected in her eyes. She was already calculating the cost. She was already trying to protect him by pushing him away. "Don't," she said quietly. "Don't come with me. Please. For Thomas." But Liam was done with fear. He was done with letting his past make his choices for him. "I'm coming," he said. Before they left, Liam called Mrs. Johnson, the neighbor who watched Thomas during the day. "Can you pick him up after school?" he asked. "There's an emergency at work." "I don't know how long I'll be gone." She didn't ask questions. She just said yes. The drive took 40 minutes. Marcus's car was cold and silent, the kind of silence that existed in expensive vehicles designed to isolate you from the world. Elena sat in the back next to Liam. She didn't touch him, but he could feel her trembling. "You don't understand what you're walking into," she said in a voice only he could hear. "Then explain it to me." "I can't. Not in time. Marcus has already built his narrative. I have weeks of work to undo in days." "Then we start now," Liam said. "You tell me everything. All of it. No more pieces. Everything. Elena told him. She talked about building something from nothing, about climbing every ladder in the corporation through hard work and intelligence. She talked about trusting Marcus because she had mentored him, brought him up the ranks, believed in his potential. She talked about the moment she realized he had been documenting everything she did, waiting for any mistake, any moment of weakness he could use. She told him about the falsified reports, the altered emails, the manufactured scandal that made her look like she had embezzled funds that Marcus had actually moved. She told him about the board members who wanted to believe his version, because it was easier than admitting they had missed corruption happening under their noses. And she told him what would happen if she walked back into that office unprepared. She would be suspended, possibly fired, possibly prosecuted. Her name would be destroyed. Everything she had built would be attributed to someone else or erased entirely. "But you have evidence," Liam said. "I have fragments, conversations I remember. One specific moment when Marcus told me he was taking over my accounts. He said, 'You've done enough. Let me handle this.' I remember the exact way he smiled when he said it." Elena's voice trembled. "I have memories. I have the timeline of when discrepancies first appeared, but nothing concrete enough to prove in court without a months-long investigation." The corporate headquarters was a glass tower in the center of the city. 40 stories of steel and ambition. Marcus had a meeting scheduled with the board. He had used his access as an executive to book the room and call the members in, claiming he had critical information about Elena's conduct. His position hadn't changed. He still had security clearance, still had authority. The board hadn't questioned his request. He led them through the lobby with the casual confidence of someone who owned the place, or thought he would soon. He took them to the 20th floor, to a conference room where 3 board members sat waiting. One of them was a woman in her 60s. She looked at Elena with something like disappointment. "We need to discuss your position," the woman said, "and the allegations that have come to our attention." Marcus launched into his presentation. He was good at it. Liam had to give him that. He built his case methodically, showing documents that looked legitimate, presenting emails and sequences that told a specific story. He painted Elena as ambitious, reckless, willing to break rules for personal gain. Liam watched Elena's face as Marcus spoke. She had gone very still. Her hands were folded on the table. She looked smaller in this environment, diminished by the weight of corporate politics and legalized betrayal. Then something shifted in her posture. Her chin lifted slightly. She spoke without raising her hand or asking for permission. "May I?" she asked the board members. The woman nodded. Elena didn't present documents. She didn't show spreadsheets or emails. Instead, she told stories. She talked about the night she ran away, about the conversation she had with a stranger who had shown her kindness without expecting anything in return. She talked about how that conversation had made her remember who she was before ambition had shaped her. She recounted the moment Marcus had told her he was taking over her accounts. She remembered the exact phrase he had used. "You've done enough. Let me handle this." She remembered the smile on his face and how her instinct had screamed that something was wrong. Then she did something that startled everyone in the room. She pulled out her phone and showed them Marcus's email from 3 months ago, the one where he had requested access to her accounts. The timestamp on the email didn't match the timestamp on the falsified documents Marcus had presented. The dates were off by 2 weeks. "The documents Mr. Devereaux showed you are dated March 15th, Elena said quietly. "But he didn't request access to my accounts until March 29th. He couldn't have documented transactions he hadn't had access to yet. That's not a coincidence. That's fraud." She looked directly at Marcus. "You taught me something, actually. You taught me that people show you who they are if you pay attention. I just ignored it because I wanted to believe in you. That's my failure. But it doesn't make your actions any less criminal." Marcus's face had gone white. He started talking, his words coming faster, his narrative beginning to unravel as he tried to defend himself against accusations that Elena had only partially made. His desperation was a confession in itself. One of the board members stood up. "We're going to need a full forensic review of these accounts," he said, immediately. "And Mr. Devereaux, I think you should probably speak to a lawyer." The meeting dissolved. People started making phone calls. Security was suddenly very interested in ensuring Marcus didn't leave the building. In the hallway, Elena stood with her back against the glass wall. Looking out at the city spreading beneath them, she looked hollowed out. Liam stood next to her, not touching, just present. "Thank you," she said finally. "You did that. Not me. I wouldn't have been able to do it without knowing I had someone to come back to." Elena turned to look at him, someone who mattered more than all of this. They left the building and drove back to Liam's house in silence. The roads were clear now. Spring was coming, underneath the last traces of winter. Liam could smell it in the air, that particular scent of thaw and renewal. At home, Thomas was waiting on the porch with Mrs. Johnson, the neighbor who watched him during the day. The boy ran toward Elena the moment she stepped out of the car. "You came back," Thomas said, latching onto her leg like he was afraid she would disappear again. Elena picked him up, and over his shoulder, she looked at Liam with an expression that contained all the healing that still needed to happen, all the trust that would have to be rebuilt, all the future that was now possible. Over the next 2 weeks, the investigation unraveled Marcus's scheme completely. The falsified documents, the diverted funds, the manufactured allegations, it all came to light. Elena was cleared. More than that, she was offered a choice by the board: take her position back with new oversight and accountability structures, or walk away from the corporation entirely. She chose to walk away. She came to Liam's house on a Friday evening in early spring. The last snow had melted. The world was turning green again. She carried her backpack with the expensive watch and the documents that no longer meant anything to her. "I'm taking a sabbatical," she told Liam. "Maybe 2 years, maybe longer. I'm going to figure out who I am when I'm not trying to survive in a corporate war. And I'd like to do that here, if you'll have me." Liam looked at her. Not the CEO she had been, not the frightened woman who had arrived in a blizzard, but Elena. Just Elena. "We'd like that," he said. "Wouldn't we, Thomas?" His son, sitting on the porch with a glass of milk, nodded seriously. "Can Elena help me build a new fort?" he asked. "A bigger one," Elena said, smiling. That night, the three of them sat on the porch as the sun went down, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The worst of winter had passed. The storm that had raged both outside and within had finally broken. Elena reached over and squeezed Liam's hand. It was a simple gesture. No grand declarations. No promises about forever. Just a quiet acknowledgement that two broken people had found something real in the wreckage of their separate lives. Thomas fell asleep against Elena's shoulder. Liam sat with them, watching the light fade from the sky, and felt something settle in his chest. Something deeper than happiness. Something that had been missing since his wife had died, since Sarah had taken his trust, along with his father's watch. He felt like he could breathe again. The next morning, Liam woke to find Elena in the kitchen making coffee. Thomas was still asleep. The house was quiet in that gentle way it had learned to be since she arrived. "I'm scared," Elena said without preamble, handing him a cup. "Of what?" "Of ruining this. Of being the wrong person for you and Thomas. Of the fact that I still have money, and you don't. And that might become something we can't overcome." Liam took the coffee. He thought about the night she had shown up at his door. He thought about every conversation they had had, every moment of vulnerability they had shared. "We'll figure it out," he said. "Together. That's what people do when they actually care about each other." Elena nodded. She didn't look entirely convinced, but she looked less afraid. Outside, birds were singing. The world was waking up. And in a small house that had once held only grief and survival, something new was beginning to grow.